Hi, this is Troy Davison, creator of the PHRETS library. Let's talk about authentication and connecting to a RETS server. In order to connect to a RETS server, you have to first authenticate, and in order to authenticate, you have to have an account. That account would be created by the board or the MLS that you're interested in connecting to. The MLS typically has some agreements and some signatures and rules that they need to make sure that you understand and that you agree to prior to being given access to that data. Once they give you access to that, the information that they will provide to you will be the credentials that you can use in order to connect. Those credentials come in the way of a username and password, which are the typical credentials that you're familiar with. In addition to that, there's a login URL, and this is one thing that's somewhat unique to RETS. When you would typically use an API for, say, Twitter or for Facebook, you might provide the username and password or the API key and the secret. However, the client and the code that you would be using would already know how to connect to Facebook or would already know how to connect to Twitter and where specifically out on the internet to go and do that. With RETS, there is no single RETS server that you're connecting to. The RETS server you're connecting to is controlled and made available by the individual MLS market that you're connecting to. And within the United States, there are over 800 different MLSs that you could connect to. So there could potentially be 800 different RETS login URLs that would allow for your RETS compliant client to connect to the system and to retrieve the information that you're looking for. So in addition to the username and password, the login URL is incredibly important to make sure that your code is pointed to and pulling data from the correct MLS or from the correct server. In addition to the username, password, and login URL, you might have also been given a user agent header. And this is basically the name that your code is advertising itself as when it's connecting or communicating with that RETS server. This allows them on their end to see the tools that you're using, the code that you're using, and in many ways to provide maybe some additional support if there were questions that you would have. Oftentimes, in addition to a user agent header, there might be a user agent password that you would be given. And this is pretty unique and is something that requires a little bit of an explanation. This is not typically implemented exactly the way that the feature was originally intended to be designed, or at least the way I believe it was intended to be designed. However, what you end up getting is, in addition to the username and password that you have for your account, the software that you're using should also have its own essentially username, which is the user agent header, and the password, which is referred to as the user agent authentication password. So ultimately, when you're connecting, you're providing two different sets of credentials. If you are getting errors back from the server that say that, for example, your user agent isn't registered or your user agent isn't authorized, it's probably because you are either providing an incorrect user agent header or the password that you're given either is not being given or is not correct for that particular user agent. So if you're getting those errors, it's important to check back with the MLS or the person that gave you access to that RETS server in the first place so that you can verify that the credentials you have are correct and that you're able to connect and that your account is still turned on. But once you have all of the credentials out of the way, you'll be able to connect and pull the information from that RETS server that you're interested in getting. The process to connect, once you've configured your credentials, you will issue a connect call. Technically, within the RETS specification, there is an additional follow-up call that can be made. The PHRETS library handles that automatically for you, but there may be some additional information that comes back from that. There might be some bulletins or general announcements that the RETS server is trying to make to you as the client that will be returned in that response and may be helpful for you to collect. And you can collect that through the bulletin object that's returned back from PHRETS. But once all of that information is in place and you've connected, you're now ready to move on to the other types of RETS requests so that you can pull the information that you're ultimately after. That's it for this tutorial. If you have suggestions or comments for things that should be covered in future videos, please use the comment section below, and I'll review those comments and tailor future videos to the things that you guys would like to see.